What is going on, guys? Rewinds here, and in this video I'm going to be bringing you guys my review for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Manga chapter number 20. And first things first, shout out to the Boruto franchise for hitting 100 total chapters. Pretty big milestone to hit for a monthly manga. Boruto now has been going on, I feel like, in serialization for around 9 years, I want to say. I know we've had a couple of months where we've had a couple chapter breaks, but I do think Boruto is around that 9 year mark. Big stuff nonetheless for a series that a lot of people, doubted when it first came out, to get this far and to still be going really, really strong and arguably probably be at its, peak now with Boruto 2 Blue Vortex in terms of popularity. Uh, right now is a really good time to be a Boruto fan. And when I do say peak of popularity, I'm talking about online. I understand, when it comes to the manga volume sales, the starting ones of the original Boruto are the highest at the moment, and that's usually how most series go, regardless whether they be monthly or weekly. But in terms of online traction, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex has definitely put Boruto back on the map to a high level, and so did the ending stretch of Boruto Naruto Next Generations. But nonetheless, let's talk about the chapter. So, this chapter, we actually have a solo cover for Konohamaru, which I feel like was long due. I'd been saying that the last two chapter reviews or so, that it's about time that Konohamaru got himself a cover. So this is his first cover in the series, and looks pretty cool. I'm a fan. And the chapter itself was titled Because of Love. So, this chapter kicks off with Matsuri and Konohamaru, and Matsuri is saying that Konohamaru whines too much and asking pretty much if snapping his neck would shut him up or if he prefers to chat till she devours him. And while she's saying all this, she's still calling him Konohamaru-chan, even though Konohamaru's told her not to call him that. Konohamaru then gets a little flashback to what Shikamaru said about taming these beasts and then turning on them. Konohamaru starts moving towards that plan. So, I actually really like how Konohamaru breaks her down in this chapter. So, what happens is that he first asks her, "Didn't you say that getting to talk so much made this the best day of your life?" And pretty much he's saying that if she devours him, that they'll never get to talk like this ever again. Matsuri says, yeah, it was fun, but it was also equally terrifying. And she says it's become clear to her that Konohamaru makes her crazy and is a danger to her, and that mix of feeling of crazy and danger gives her the instinct to get rid of the danger, which is Konohamaru. But at the same time, she says part of her desires Konohamaru. So ultimately, that mix is her justification to devour Konohamaru. And right then, she squeezes him harder and Konohamaru screams out in pain. So honestly, I think one of the worst things that happened to Konohamaru in this situation is the fact that he got trapped because he was so close to her. So he's put himself in a really bad spot, just generally speaking. So we actually then cut over to the other battlefield where we have the other fight going on, and first Araya gets taken out by Ryu, and then right after that Mitsuki fights with Sage Mode for a little bit, but he gets taken out as well, and he also gets knocked out of his Sage Mode, so it's looking pretty rough on that battlefield right now, honestly on both right now. And then Araya at that moment tells Sarada to escape and forget about them. Ryu ends up saying that he's not letting anyone escape, but at the same time, he says it wouldn't make sense to kill everyone either. He says he'll let them go if they have any intel they can give him on Otsutsuki Boruto or his accomplice. Mitsuki tells them not to fall for it, and that Ryu will kill them regardless. Yodo tries convincing Sarada to give out Boruto, claiming that they'll be killed if she doesn't. Sarada responds by saying it's a trap. And she also says that she doesn't have any intel to sell, but even if she did, she would never sell out a friend. So Sarada's standing on her principles, which I respect. Yodo looks like she would be willing to be a sellout here. I mean, I get she wants to try saving their lives, and she's probably concerned about her own life a lot too. But um, Sarada's just showing that, you know, she's not one to abandon her comrades like that. Which, hey, if we think back to the OG, that's with the whole Kakashi and Obito thing as well. Those who abandon their comrades are scum, and Sarada refuses to be one of those. Yodo pretty much responds to this by saying that she's figured out Sarada, and that Sarada feels the same way about Boruto the way she feels about Shinki. And Yodo tells Ryu that they have no intel to share on Boruto. She offers herself up instead, saying that her abilities could help detect Boruto. She says that she'll gather any info for him, and in return she wants Ryu to let the other three go. So this is a little bit of a mix of selfish and helpful, because she's trying to save the other three, but at the same time she's willing to do anything for Shinki. And I mean, Ryu is, the Shinju version of Shinki. So this is one of those things where I've kind of seen some people reacting mixed to, for Yodo's character, but I do think it makes sense with everything she said so far. Too bad for her, it doesn't end up panning out well. But first, we do end up getting back to the whole Konohamaru and Matsuri thing, and pretty much what happens is that as Matsuri is pretty much attacking Konohamaru, she ends up starting to shed some tears and asks what is going on. Konohamaru then yells Matsuri's name. He says that you're shedding tears is exactly what's going on. And he says you must be feeling sad, which means you don't want to kill me. We then see Jura at the hideout shedding a few tears too, which I kind of found to be a little shocking. I wasn't expecting that. So it makes sense though, with I guess Jura knowing everything that's going on. I guess right now the question is Jura able to see everything, or is he just feeling the emotions of his fellow Shinju perhaps? So Hidari is just looking at Jura and he's puzzled. Like he has no idea what this I guess thing is running down Jura's face. And Konohamaru then asks Matsuri to do him a favor and to squeeze his hands. He says, let's join hands. That's how a special relationship starts. He says it'll be the first step for the both of us. And she holds hands with him and ends up saying, it's so warm. And pretty much that's how Konohamaru tricked her. And that Shikamaru flashback pops up again to betray the Shinju. And right then, Konohamaru uses a double giant Rasengan, as we have Shikamaru saying, betray them in the flashback. And that double giant Rasengan destroys Matsuri's arms completely. And at the last second, though, she says Konohamaru-chan, and that makes him slightly hesitate and falter. So he didn't end up dealing a killing blow, but he did still execute the plan, and he did still technically do a lot of damage by taking her arms off. But he didn't finish her, which does put him in trouble going forward. Meanwhile, Jura is narrating this actually, which I think everything when it came to a build-up perspective in this chapter was really good. I like how we had the flashbacks of Shikamaru leading to that moment Konohamaru did to Matsuri. Big moment for Konohamaru and great moment showing that he is capable of, executing this mission. Just maybe perhaps not to the fullest extent that Shikamaru would have liked. Because this is, someone who, I guess you can say resembles the person that Konohamaru actually likes. So, but nonetheless, the fact that he took off 2 arms of Matsuri is a big blow, especially since it's a Shinju. And we got to see him use a double giant Rasengan, which is something we have not seen him use in the manga. So, in my book, so far at least, it's a W for Konohamaru, but we'll see what happens now since he didn't get the job done. But nonetheless, the build up to that moment, really good. I really like the fact too of how he led on Matsuri in this case and executed the plan. And the next part I also liked, which is Jura narrating the whole situation and saying that Matsuri wavered on devouring him and allowed him to trick her into a counterattack, and that was because of love. And also because of love, Konohamaru fell prey to doubt and let victory slip from his grasp. So, in a way, they both got each other in some regard at some point. And now, pretty much to end off anything we've seen between this battlefield, we have her charging back at him now, and that's pretty much where the Konohamaru and Matsuri scene ends off for now. But then we go back over to the other battlefield before the chapter ends, and Ryu has now just pierced Yodo with the iron sand, and it actually looks like it could be a potential fatal blow unless someone heals her fast. So Ryu ends up saying no thanks after he pierced her, and says that she shouldn't talk down to him. It's annoying. And Yodo's pretty much just saying while she's on the ground that she's done for. She tells Sarada, "You don't know why you want to be strong, do you? Your true feelings, you're deluding yourself subconsciously." And they pretty much have this moment where this conversation Yodo has kind of awakens Sarada. And she talks about the power that Sarada's been letting rot, saying that it's okay to use it for other things than just the greater good. You're allowed to use it for and only for that special person in your life to protect them. And right then, Sarada awakens, or I guess you could say reawakens her Mangekyo Sharingan. Based off how this is implied, it feels like she didn't directly have access to the Mangekyo, but it was always there, I guess. It was just subconsciously there. So if anything, it's just like a reawakening, which I think was a cool way for them to do how they did it with the whole Yodo speech. So now to end off the chapter, for the first time ever for us as readers, we get to see what Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan ability is. And pretty much what happens is that the iron sand ends up getting gathered in one spot and being sucked in, which ends up happening pretty much through a black hole type of warping ability, similar to Kamui, but not exactly, but it does resemble that. Of course, I feel like next month we're going to get a lot more details of how exactly her ability works, what the limitations are, and we do got to remember that she, her Mangekyo Sharingan is probably going to cause a lot of damage to her vision, because she doesn't have two Mangekyo Sharingan to make it kind of like, how Sasuke's case would have been initially, where we had, both his and Itachi's there so that his eyes wouldn't take damage. And, we can, of course, talk about that too for a lot of the other characters too in the Naruto War arc. But Sarada's usage is probably going to be limited in that regard, but that could also be part of the reason why we didn't see her use it till now. But I do feel like what more likely happened is that she subconsciously just tapped back into it, thinking that she needs to use this to, protect her comrades here, as well as protect the person she cares about most, which she's starting to realize is Boruto. So that pretty much wraps up the chapter. Well, actually, one more thing happened. It ended with Mitsuki actually having a good look at her and kind of narrating a little bit too. He pretty much started saying her eyes are, and then he says Mangekyo Sharingan. That's pretty much what he's thinking, and then that's the final page we get to see the final panel be Sarada with her Mangekyo Sharingan. So really cool stuff there. Awesome moment. I feel like this chapter really ended up giving a lot of payoff from some of the things that were being built up the last like 2 or 3 chapters. So me personally, I'm definitely a big fan of this chapter. Best chapter I think we've had in the last 4 months at least, maybe more. I want to give this chapter in that ballpark of a 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. Probably more so a 9. Really, really good stuff. And it's not to say that the chapters we had the last, 2 or 3 months weren't great, We still had some good to great chapters in those months. But it's really good to see some payoff happen and some big progression to be made. There's still, of course, a lot more room to go, I feel like, with stuff in this arc. But I do feel like we're hitting that climax phase, especially since Konohamaru just landed a big blow on Matsuri, which was huge on that side of the battlefield. And then now on this side of the battlefield, yes, they're in a dire situation, but Sarada just reawakened her Mangekyo Sharingan, and now we're going to get to see how she faces off against Ryu ultimately. So, that's going to wrap up my review for this month, I think. Actually, well, let me just say also, in addition, that I do feel like this is just going to be a pattern now going forward, that at least the next few weeks, not few weeks, the next few months of chapters we're going to get are only going to keep ramping up. That's my early guess. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen overall. Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, again, shout out to it for, continuing consistency. Because Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, in my opinion, still hasn't had a bad chapter. We've had every chapter I still feel like has been good or better. So I'm hoping it continues that forward, and I'm excited to see what comes by next month. But that's going to wrap up this one. If you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you guys are new. And as always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, what you thought about the chapter. But that's going to be it for this one. Hope you guys have a good day or night whenever you guys are watching this video. I'm Rewinds, and I'm out.